Right, Frankie, I think we should have a Mohammed Kudus podcast today, but I want to split this podcast into two parts. So the first part, I want to discuss what we think and what we want with Mohammed Kudus, and in particular, the potential move to Spurs. Then the second part of the podcast, I'd like to discuss West Ham's perspective of it all, because I think it's two separate things. I think sometimes when I do videos, I'm guilty of assuming people watch enough videos to know my opinion on Kudus and his future. But sometimes, as I discovered yesterday, that is not the case, and people misinterpret what I'm saying. So I want to have two separate discussions. But for the latest, for those of you unaware, Tottenham are the favourites to sign Kudus at the minute. Kudus is happy to go to Spurs, or willing to go to Spurs rather. And the rumours are from Fabrizio Romano that Kudus and his team have had talks with Spurs already. He's open to it. West Ham are open to selling Kudus to Spurs. Spurs want to buy him. Now, they've had a 50 million inquiry, if you like, not backed by West Ham. And Fabrizio Romano's reiterated that our asking price is 70 million. That's what we want for him. And there's two other clubs in the running still for Kudus, not just Spurs. One of those clubs are Chelsea. However, even though they're signing Pedro and Gittins, they still want to sign Kudus as well, but they're going to need to offload players before they can sign him. That's why they preferred a player involved in the transaction to make it cheaper for them, but West Ham aren't interested in a part exchange. They want straight cash for Mohammed Kudus. Now, the third club, it's take your guess, really. Is it Arsenal? Is it Man United? Is it Newcastle? You've got to sort of guess. However, there was a story last night that apparently Kudus's team have told Liverpool he's willing to take less wages if it means he gets a move to Anfield. Now, he hasn't really been linked to Liverpool thus far this summer for obvious reasons, with them spending money on like Verts and Frimpong going in there and Salah signing a new contract. But that's the talk last night. So a lot of rumours, Frankie, but the Kudus to Spurs one feels quite substantial, and that's the main talking point. What's your take on this?
Well, I hope not. Mainly because I've always been a Kudus believer. I just think he is going to become an absolute superstar. I've always felt like he's just got something. He's just got that bit of magic. I still stand by the fact that we didn't get him 1v1 enough last season. I think that's just his game. I think he's the master of that. Put him 1v1, get him 1v1, get him taking players on, beating a man and getting shots off. I think he adds a lot more goals to his game, and I feel like we didn't utilise him as we should have done last season. So I've always backed that wherever he goes, he's going to go on to very, very big things. I quite fancied him at Liverpool. I always felt like with Salah, okay, output still fantastic last season, but they do need a succession plan for him. They do need someone who's going to fill those boots. Probably a lot of people will massively disagree with this, but I think Kudus can easily do that. I think in a proper team like that, Liverpool, who would get him the ball high enough up the pitch in those right places, I think he would do a lot of damage, and I think he'd be absolutely fantastic for Liverpool. And I can absolutely see why his team would want to push that. The Chelsea one's surprising because, I mean, what does that speak of with Graham Potter being there with a lot of the players that are currently within that squad, and he's not interested in any of them? Yeah, you would think there'd have been someone he's worked with there that he had a good relationship with, that he felt was a good player that, you know, he would potentially be interested in working with again. But it doesn't seem, and also Kyle McCauley having links there as well. I mean, it just makes perfect sense. So how they're, whether or not that, there's two things that could mean. The ones that would come to West Ham, they just generally don't fancy, are not right for West Ham, and there's no point in even getting the ball rolling, even getting started. On the other hand, it could mean that Potter just had such a torrid time there that there's not a single player that he had a strong relationship with, and that's quite worrying. We know it didn't go to plan, but you would think you'd build relationships with some people. But yeah, so, and then we're back to the dreaded Tottenham situation, which frightens the life out of me. The thought of him in that white shirt in front of me at the London Stadium, I don't like it at all, and any other option is better than that option.
I think the funny thing with Chelsea is the one player that Potter apparently does like is Dewsbury Hall, who wasn't at Chelsea when Potter was there. He went there last summer because of Maresca. I still find it a little bit suspect that apparently we don't like any of Chelsea players, because I think, well, that's difficult to believe, because there's some good players available this summer from Chelsea, and I think there could be some ambitious moves to be had for some Chelsea players because of the players that they're signing. And I know this is me dying on my Nicholas Jackson Hill, but if he was available, I'd be all over it. I know that people don't think he's a great player. I think he's a great player and could become even better. He's obviously got a bit of some discipline issues, getting sent off in the Club World Cup and got sent off against Newcastle at the end of the season. But I don't think he's a nasty player. I think he's just a bit of a too lazy challengers, really. I would love Jackson at West Ham, but would he come? Probably not. But I just think you can't just dismiss the whole team of Chelsea. I think some of the players that is available, like Chalobah and Petrovic, I think they're good players and they're better than what we've got currently. So to dismiss them, I think, is a bit naive. But it does make me wonder if we're that desperate for money, really. But it could also be that our evaluations of the Chelsea players and Chelsea's valuation of their own players and Kudus is just worlds apart. We're saying 70 for Kudus and they're saying 50. And then they're saying 25 for Petrovic and we're saying 15. So it's not just 10 million. Well, it's 10 million, 20 million per player. It's a 30 million difference overall. So I think it's maybe just a bit of a non-starter. In regards to Tottenham, I don't want him to leave. I'd rather keep Kudus next season. Say to Graham Potter, your job as a head coach is to get the best out of your players. That is one of your jobs. You haven't done it thus far with Kudus. You need to fix that. You need to get him performing better. And I do think there's perhaps an opportunity because of the Paqueta situation. I think ideally we could have done with that being wrapped up before deciding what to do with Kudus. Because if it came out that actually Paqueta's guilty, banned, right, okay, now Kudus can play centrally, or Paqueta's innocent but he still wants off, so we're going to sell him, Kudus can now play centrally. So I wouldn't sell him. I'd keep him. If I had to sell him, I wouldn't sell him to Spurs. I don't want to go there. I think Rice to Arsenal was bad enough. This is even worse because it's selling one of our best players to a club that we don't like. And also, things are almost bad at the minute. Things are bad at the minute at West Ham. I think this is almost like, I think a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking, could it even get any worse? Apart from relegation, how can it get worse? And then this come about. I thought, actually, it can. It can still get a little bit worse. I'm already dreading seeing Kudus in another Premier League shirt. Even if I had to pick a Premier League club for Kudus to go to, it'd be Newcastle. I don't know. I've just got a soft spot for their fan base. I like their fans. I like Eddie Howe. I like the football they play. I don't begrudge Newcastle United's success. I enjoyed watching them win the Carabao Cup. So actually, Kudus go to Newcastle. I think he'll do well there. And I'd still think, damn it, we had that guy and we didn't get the best out of him. But that's what I think. I think I'd feel frustration. If I had to watch him in a Spurs shirt running around under Thomas Frank, who I think would make him a better player, I'd get angry. I would watch him and think, what have we done here? Because I don't think we've fulfilled the potential of Kudus. I don't think we've seen the best version of Kudus at West Ham. And I think if he gets his move right, someone can go and do that. Now, I actually think Chelsea would be a bad move for them. I'm not sure you see that best Kudus. I'm not sure you see that at Chelsea. I think that's where I think don't go there. You will not go on to become the player you could be. But going to Newcastle with Howe or going to Spurs with Frank, I think you may see a better Mohammed Kudus next season. I could stomach one. I certainly can't stomach him going to Spurs. But if you had to sell him, Frankie, would you be okay with him going to Tottenham, or is it anywhere but Spurs?
Anywhere but Spurs, yeah. Because of what you just said. I think Frank makes him a fantastic player. I think it'd absolutely fly there. It'd make them better, which really would annoy me. And I think he'd look like an absolute, I just think you'd see what we'd all see what we should have seen at West Ham, and we won't have seen it. So, yeah, really annoying. Is there a number that, regardless of him going on, succeeding, becoming very, very good at Tottenham, is there a number that would make you feel a lot better about that? Is there a number that you'd think, actually, that was too good to to not give him to Tottenham?
It would have to be a stupid number, but the problem is because of his release clause, it doesn't require a stupid number. We know the release clause is 85 million. I'd want more than that.
You want more?
Yeah. That wouldn't make me happy. I don't know, 100 million, which he's not worth, and no one should pay that. But that's your point, isn't it? It's got to be something that's ridiculous for you to go, all right, fair enough. We're better off here. But if I had to, if we sold Kudus tomorrow, regardless of where he goes, how much do you think we get? What do you reckon his fee is going to be?
I just know West Ham. When have we ever got the right money for anyone? Okay, you can argue with Rice. That was probably the figure.
A couple of people, we discussed this last week, didn't we? A couple of people came back with a really good example, which was Grady Diangana.
Yeah, I'm not. I more see. I go back to because when have we ever got the right money for a player who was at the top of his form?
Yeah.
Like Payet, we got absolutely done over on.
Yeah.
Jermaine Defoe, Joe Cole, players like that. They all just went for pittance. Even go back to Rio Ferdinand. He moves on from us, and he moves on a couple of years later for double the money. Like it's just mental. We never get for good players who are, who you actually should get top money for. When other clubs just hold off, and then you think, how have they got that much money for that player? I can't remember when we've done that with one of our top players. So, and I mean, even our generational talents that we've brought through. So,
to add to that, actually, Thomas Frank's former club at the minute are playing it perfectly with Brian Mbomo. So he's been linked to Man U a lot. And Brentford have said from day one, you paid 62.5 million for Cunha, we'll have 62.5 million. And Man U went, 55 million and 7.5 million of add-ons. They said, no, that's not 62.5 million. That's 55 million. We want 62.5 million guaranteed. And the Brentford director of football, someone high up involved in transfers at Brentford, went on Sky Sports last night and said, don't dismiss Mbomo being at Brentford next season. So basically, we've got a price, and if no one's going to pay it, he ain't leaving. And that's the stance you need to take. Whereas our stance with Kudus has been the complete opposite, which is, well, the release clause is 85. We'll take 65. Any offers? We've been touting him around for sale before the season had even finished. That's how desperate we are. Whereas Brentford, who are actively trying to sell one of their best players, are taking a stance. So if he doesn't have to go, we are prepared to keep him. West Ham haven't said that at all. It's quite the opposite. West Ham basically said, this guy is going. It's just a case of how much. Honestly, Brentford look like a well-run club, negotiating tough with Man United. West Ham look like a club that stinks of desperation. And we're both trying to sell players in a similar ballpark transfer fee. I think if he went tomorrow, Frankie, I think we'd get 65 million.
I'd be surprised. 55 would have been my number. One thing that I do know, or that I take those Brentford players, whether it be Mbeumo, Wissa, whatever. I just believe that they get more for either of them than we do for Mohammed Kudus. I just do. I just think the way they are.
Mbeumo, I agree with. I'm not so sure about Wissa, but only because of his contractual situation. He's only got a year to go in his contract. So I think that's changes that aspect of it. But your point is still valid in regards to, like you said, if you reckon 55 for Kudus, and Bone will be 62.5. So they've got more. Wolves have got more for Cunha. Again, release clause, yes, but the point is they're selling one of their better players, and they've achieved more money. For us, Crystal Palace, Eze, 68 million. So the clubs in and around us in the league are selling their star player for greater. And I appreciate we're keeping our one, which I bought, and we're keeping him. That is our star man. But Kudus is on a similar reputation, if you like, or status in the squad to those mentioned. Right, shall we move on to the club's perspective? Before we do that, Frankie, I'm going to promote something, but what will I promote? Will I promote the raffle, the closing down sale, or Patreon? Which one will I? Which one will
do you know what? I really, really enjoyed some Patreon content this week. I absolutely loved. I thought the videos were fantastic. I've actually really enjoyed this week's Patreon content. So let's go with that one.
Okay, right. Well, if you fancy joining Patreon, it's a way of supporting Hammers Chat. Go to patreon.com/Hammers Chat. And if you want to give a try before you buy, you're more than willing. You can get a 7-day free trial before you even give us a penny. But just for transparency and clarity, you need to cancel it. So when you sign up and activate it, make sure you cancel it before the 7 days. Otherwise, you will automatically get charged. But why should you join right now in July? Because in August, we will do our draw for July's giveaway. So anyone that's a patron in July will automatically be entered into the giveaway. And there's 6 prizes. Top 2 prizes this month will be a signed Mark Noble shirt and a pair of match-worn Mark Noble boots. Patron, you can join from £3.60. And that's not the secret price. There's no VAT to be added on top of that. It's £3. It's £3 plus the 20% makes it £3.60. So you pay £3.60, and then you can enjoy some extra content over on there. Last night we put up our first episode of Mock the Week. Did you? Is that the one you watched? Did you watch that one?
Yeah, I did watch it. It was very good. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Bit risky.
No, I'm all for it. Mate, a bit of lightheartedness in a world that we've got at the moment is very.
That's why I've hid it on Patreon. Bit risky. So I didn't
I'm surprised I picked Patreon, Geo, because I may not have been the biggest fan of Patreon before. But what I would say, and I've been critical of all West Ham channels and Patreon.
Frankie will regularly message me and slag me off. He calls it feedback, but
yeah, very constructive criticism, Geo, I would say. But actually, for what I've received from the content this week, and just for it to be a bit mixed up and a little bit different, it's worth every single penny. So, yeah, I'm glad you've given it a little plug there because. Mate, it should be seen by more people. It was fantastic. I loved it.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. There you go. Frankie's review as a consumer, not a contributor. Just for transparency, Frankie doesn't get paid by Hamish Chat. He's part of this channel and does my weekly podcast with me, but he doesn't get paid or anything like that. And he's a patron, a subscriber, just like everyone else that joins up on Patreon. So patreon.com/Hamish Chat, links in the description below. Pin comments. Thank you to everybody who joins up, supports us, sticks with us, or even if you just give it a go and you think this isn't really for me, we appreciate you giving it a try. Right, Frankie, I want to discuss the club's perspective because this is where you almost have to put what you want as a fan to one side for a moment and look at it through the club's perspective, which is what do they do? What do they need to do? Because from the sound of it, they're open to selling Kudus to Spurs. There's been an unofficial transfer embargo between the two clubs for over 10 years now, but this could be the deal that finally breaks it. This is where Gonzo used the phrase yesterday, beggars can't be choosers, and a few people picked up on it, and someone said to us, oh, you're swallowing Sullivan's stuff. So my response was, I've done enough videos saying I don't believe what Sullivan says, right? That's taken out of context. However, what Gonzo meant was the club are pleading poverty. You don't have to believe it, but this is what the club are doing. The club are pleading poverty, and therefore you've got the Southern highest bidder. And what could be the reality is that Spurs are the only bidder here. We may not get any more bids from any club except Tottenham. Are the club up against the wall and Tottenham have got the gun to our head a little bit, which is we're going to have your star player for a little bit less than he's worth? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's and there are multiple ways of looking at it. From a fan perspective, we're sitting here going, "Cool," and on the surface, just don't do it, whatever you do. Now, we don't know, and this is what I'll always say, we don't know what the actual situation is behind the scenes. We're completely unaware of how things are. Now, regardless of whether there should be money to spend, shouldn't be money to spend, Sullivan is in control and he will play it as he wants to. And there's nothing any of us can do about that. It's so frustrating. It's annoying. We know we've got owners that aren't interested in being ambitious with us and so on. So what it comes down to really is if Kyle McCauley has done his job since he joined the club, which was work with Potter to highlight players that we are interested in signing, and Potter sat down and highlighted the players that he wants to sign, the time's ticking. Like players, we've already seen last week an example of a player that may or may not have been on that shortlist, however you want to believe it, but has gone somewhere else. So if this is the only way that you can give them that money to bring in the players that they want. Now, but this is the problem that you get when you have an ownership like this that's lasted as long as it does and the trust is gone. Because if you're not like this, and because let's be honest, the output of Mohammed Kudus for the money that he's worth probably wasn't where it needed to be last season.
Yeah. I think that's a very fair comment.
Yeah, and regardless of whether I believe in him or not, his output in terms of what he added to the team last season wasn't anywhere near enough for the valuation that he's got.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, if you trusted the owner, if you trusted the manager, and you trusted in what they were going to do with that money, it's a very different conversation. I couldn't give a care less about Tottenham and what Tottenham do. I've got to be honest with you. I couldn't care less. I couldn't care less. So Tottenham are going to do whatever they're going to do. I would love West Ham for once to be in a position where you'd go, do you know what? Off you go. I know what we're going to go and do is better than the option of selling him to Tottenham. Yeah, you went over there, but we've gone and done exactly what we needed to do to have a much better season next season and drag West Ham back up the league and up the table and start playing the football and getting the results that we need to. But I don't believe it. So because I don't believe it, that's the problem.
I almost want to stand up and applaud you. I couldn't agree more word for word that, Frankie. The trust doesn't exist. And I think that's a big part of the issue. And I think we're in this situation because of years of incompetence and neglect. And Steinberg yesterday was on one in terms of putting messages out there about how bad the financial situation is at West Ham. Jacob Steinberg's a journalist, for those that don't know, who ghostwritten Mark Noble's book. I think he's had involvements with the club before and done stuff with the owners before as well. But he was really hammering down yesterday that West Ham are skint. There's no money. They really have to sell before they buy. Otherwise, there's going to be serious repercussions when it comes to PSR. And he was going all in on it. And again, you don't have to believe it, but that's the word that's coming out. Because what is, as Frankie said, we'll never know the truth, but this is the truth, which is we won't see the accounts until December for the year that's just passed. We will always be 7-8 months behind with the financial situation, black and white. When we get in at the end of December, early January, we'll get the set of accounts that ended in May, and we'll be able to go, oh, right, okay, they were telling the truth. We really are. That's good, but we won't know until then. So you cannot believe Steinberg and any Sean at X or Clive and Hugh, anyone that puts out this message at the cover skin. You can say I don't believe it, but that's just an opinion based on probably what Frankie said, which is lack of trust, but also what third-party people such as Kieran Maguire and Swiss Rambles and the Athletic are saying, which is West Ham should be fine. They should be all right, but they don't know the increase of the wage bill because of last summer. They don't know how much of an impact that's had. But what we do know is looking at the set of accounts that is available, West Ham owe over 200 million to other football clubs for players we already own. And this was before the spend up by Steiden last summer, by the way. This is before we started signing Niklas Füllkrug, so on and so forth. So this is Kudus, Alvarez, Paqueta. We owe over 200 million for players we already own. Clubs owe us nothing. They did owe us 69 million, and we sold it for 64 million to Barclays Bank, essentially 5 million interest on a payday loan because it's short term. We needed the cash flow. We got the cash flow, and then no one should be surprised about this, but we end up in a situation where that money's dried up. It's like, oh no, now what do? We're still over 200 million, and no one owes us money anymore. There's a 200 million hole right there. So the club are desperate. And that's why we're in this situation where, like you said, a well-run club, you wouldn't care who you sell them to. You sell it to the highest bidders, you get the good players, and you move on, you improve the squad, everyone's a winner. But you can't have faith in that. You can't have hope in that. In an ideal world, you say to Spurs, don't even bother. Like, even if you're the highest bidder, we'll take a few million less and sell them to Newcastle or Chelsea. You ain't getting it. There's no way in hell you're getting Mohammed Kudus. Go away, do one. But we're not in an ideal. In fact, you don't even need to be in an ideal world. You just need to be competent at your job. You just need to be average at your job. We need to be okay financially to be able to do that. If we have to deal with Spurs, it's because things are really bad at that football club. Really, really bad. And like I said, Karen Brady did a puff piece on the club last week. the statement in there. It said, this is the second longest consecutive period of time we've been in the top flight in our history without relegation. Factually true. But there should be a benefit to that. And one of the benefits should be financial security. You should be in a position where you're minted because you've been in the Premier League for so long. Financially, you're loaded, that you're safe and secure. Your playing squad's good because you've been in the Premier League for so long. We've got a squad compatible to teams at the bottom of the Premier League, and we've got finances that's worse than the teams that have just come up. We've got finances similar to Leicester City, who 4 weeks before the season kicks off, they've got no manager, no pre-season, they've got nothing. Leicester, we are going to become the next Leicester City if we're not careful. We have to, whether we like it or not, put that to one side. The club are just going to have to take the top bidder for Kudus, regardless of who it is, because of the situation they put themselves in. Because I agree with Frankie, yes, last season the numbers from Kudus wasn't good enough, but what I also feel confident is Kudus doesn't work under Potter. I don't think Potter knows how to get the best out of him. So as much as I want to keep him and say to Potter, make him work, and also part of me wants to say that because I'm not confident Potter will be here in 12 months' time. But if Kudus was here, the next manager would have a really good player to work with. But part of the rumours are that Potter has authorised this sale, and it's easy to believe that because of what we've seen with Kudus and Graham Potter thus far. And like Frankie said, they'll be keen to get money into the club. They'll be looking at the squad and they'll be saying, well, what are these players worth? I get 15 million. That was our price tag, and still no one's bid for him. I mean, it feels low to me, but even at that low price, still no one's come in. Alvarez has been for sale for ages, not a sniff. I mean, he's still playing for Mexico at the minute. Might make it more tricky, but yeah, it's not stopped Quansah joining Bayer Leverkusen literally between the semi-final and the final of the Euro Under-21s. He was in negotiations with Bayer Leverkusen. So it doesn't stop other clubs doing business, but it seems to prevent us. We don't have anyone to sell. It came out yesterday, Kudus is the only saleable asset. They're not really wrong. Bowen is, but we don't want to sell him. Wan-Bissaka is, we don't want to sell him. But from the ones we want to move on and have a look at the players, the money that these players are worth, selling James Ward-Prowse or Max Kilman today is actually a negative impact on PSR. It puts you in a worse situation than you were in before you sold them. Cash flow, better, money coming in. PSR-wise, it's actually worse to sell those players. That's why we couldn't sell Maxwell Cornet a year ago, because of the negative impact it would have on PSR. We had to loan him out just to kick the can down the road a little bit. We are in a horrific position financially. And because of that, we're in an even worse position when it comes to negotiating. And because of that, it means we're in an even worse position when it comes to buying players. Because when we rock up, when Callum Brady said on that Sky Sports podcast, we make one offer, it's our final offer, take it or leave it. She's saying it as if it's a negotiating stance, that she's this powerful woman. It's not. It's because it's all we can afford. Take it or leave it. That's literally it. We've got no more money. That is our offer. We've got no more. There is no wiggle room. That is it. It's just, we should never be in this situation. The worst thing about it, Frankie, for me, is they had 3 years of European football, which they couldn't have planned for. When they do their financial forecast, there's no way in hell they said, oh, we're going to qualify for European football, have a really deep run in the competition. That's going to bring in all this money. You can't plan that. Their plan is we're going to stay in the Premier League. So they almost had 3 years of a lot of bonus money coming into the club, all this tens of millions they weren't expecting. They've completely pissed it up the wall. They had an opportunity to capitalize on it, make the squad better, stronger, so that you become. People laugh at Chelsea for hoovering up all these players. And I get it, right? Spending $1.5 billion in 3 years. But you look at their squad, they're all 23, 24-year-olds. They're all worth tens and tens and tens of million. If it doesn't work out, oh no, let's sell him for 40 million. It doesn't work out at West Ham, let's sell him for 4 million. Because it's just... Anyway, sorry for rambling on, but what a crap situation we find ourselves in, Frankie. And that's where beggars can't be choosers line comes from. It's because that's the reality at West Ham. We've got no power when it comes to negotiating, and we've got no pool for attracting players, and we've got no money for buying players. Just everything you need for relegation, West Ham have it right now.
And it's sad because we we were told that this move, we wouldn't be a selling club no more. What was the point in doing what we've done? What have we, you can say we had European football and so on. I don't think this
by
has
accident.
By accident. And that's exactly what it is. And that is bang on the money, that. And we're now here in no better situation. In fact, from what you've just spelt out there, it's even more bleak than maybe some people realise on the surface of it. And for what? For the match day experience we've got, for the what we have to endure as fans and everything else. It's tough to look at it and just think, how are we here? And the financial model, they had the deal of a lifetime, deal of a century, as some people call it, and everything else on what they've had. And now you can put yourself into this. It's only down to incompetence. It's only down to awful transfer business. It's only down to having the oldest squad or second to oldest squad in the Premier League for years and years and years, and no vision, no looking forward. It's all been so season by season, just stand where we are, just keep on ticking it over. It is such a shame. It really is, because like you said, how many times have West Ham been in a position where you think, we can now kick on, and it's always one step forward, two steps back. We can never make the most of the situations that we put ourselves in when you think, right, we're on the up now, let's go. And but that's life of being a West Ham fan.
Right, I'm going to finish this off in just a minute. Before I do that, I thought of something because of Frankie. I think I've got a good ending to the podcast, so I'm going to say it. But before I do that, please do subscribe to your channel. Drop a like on the podcast if you've enjoyed it as well. It does help us out quite a lot. Frankie, thank you very much for joining me again. I've enjoyed that. I needed that chat. I needed that conversation. And if you lot at home wouldn't mind checking out Patreon, go to patreon.com/HammersChat. Links in the description below. And I'll end up with this. Frankie just said there, one step forward, two steps back with this football club. And I agree. The problem is we're doing that at the top of a cliff. And if you keep doing that at the top of a cliff, eventually you're going to tip over the edge and fall off. And I think that's where we are now. We're at the edge of the cliff. We take another two steps back, I think we might end up going through that trapdoor.